It has been said that motorsports is high-speed art. Now that reference, of course, is usually directed at the cars and their drivers. But in 2003, George Barber took it upon himself and took that notion and applied it to a venue itself. As a result, Barber Motorsports Park takes the word park to a new level, with a feeling of a black ribbon of tarmac curling its way through a huge garden and stunning museum. Due to its landscaping and greenery, Barber is often referred to as the Augusta National of motorsports. But with its somewhat freakish sculptures and decorations, others feel the grounds are a little, well, creepy. But whether you feel it beguiling or bizarre, it is the most pristine of venues, and the circuit itself is as much of a gem as is the facility. It's a compact track of amazing rhythm, with swoops uphill and down dale. Tonight, this picturesque circuit welcomes the competitors of the Full Send Sims Esports iRacing Spec Miata Series for the opening round of 2024's third season. Hi all, I'm Greg Creamer, and welcome to the Magic Garden that is Barber Motorsports Park. Joining me as always, Kyle Heyer. Sorry, Kyle, was going for some drama there. Great to have you with us, and I don't think there's any question that Barber is a beautiful facility, and the track is pretty amazing.
It's really cool. This is a really fun flowing circuit. It doesn't have crazy long straightaways. You're not going to be drafting all that much here, but it is all about handling it, this place. Up and down, like you said in your intro, Greg, but high G corners too. You've got some heavy braking zones. This place is a lot of fun in the Spec MX-5, and these cars are tuned to handle like those Spec MX-5 machines, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We have a field of over 30 cars tonight in the first race of the season in Season 3 of 2024.
Yeah, and it's not a particularly long track, so that'll be busy. The other thing, this track was really designed at first as a motorcycle track. Races great for bikes, can be a little tough to pass on in cars, although these Miatas somehow seem to get it done, Kyle.
Yeah, certainly, and it all begins with a run down towards turn one, and it's a fast left-hander there. There's some camber, but not a lot of runoff. There's a bit of grass there before the pavement. Then turns 2 and 3, sweeping right into turn 4, down the hill into 5. That's a passing opportunity, but then you leave turn 6 and head down another back straightaway towards 7, 8, 9. That drops you into another passing opportunity if you're aggressive through the chicane at 10 and 11 and to a very tricky, fast part of the circuit, the last sector from 12 to 16.
Yeah, that last sector, 12-13, you've got to get through there, get lined up right. And if you are willing to go, if you don't have somebody right behind you, as you come out of 14, you can arc way out and then really get a drive through 15. That'll help you set up for 16. And if you're chasing somebody, you might be able to get enough speed if you've laid apex 15 enough to take a stab at him down into that final corner. So there's some, you really have to get creative here sometimes to do some passing. And as you said, that turn 1, really tricky, falls away downhill, you lose that camber you're talking about, and then as you bottom out, then you start that little rise. The elevation change here is really, really fun. And it is a great track to drive. There's a look at the exit of turn 1. You can see as you fall away, right there, you lose everything, and it feels like the car's gone. And then if you do it right, you suddenly get that little bit of uphill, you get that grip back, and you sort of enter that turn, I think, Kyle, with, on faith a little bit that grip's going to come back to you.
Yeah, they're just like the track that we were at last weekend, you and I, Greg, at Lime Rock Park. There's big compressions in some areas as well. One of those is down here at the bottom of the corkscrew. As you compress into the bottom, you've got a lot more grip than you think you would otherwise have, and nice wide flat curbs that you can use to attack corners like this in the S's. Clamber that one on the left, straight line the one on the right, and even in an MX-5, it's a little tricky to keep from going off course there. And there's a little grass strip ahead of all the pavement runoff. It lets you run wide if you absolutely need to, but you can't abuse track limits here. It will bite you and send you for a ride if you don't respect the edges of the road.
Yeah, and there was also a notice in the driver's briefing here in Discord where they made the point that those really wide curbs, you have got to keep 2 of your tires on the black part of the track. If you end up completely on top of those curbs, whether iRacing establish it as a penalty or not, the series will, and that lap will be disallowed. So a lot to be looking at here. And Nicholas Rice-Puto, our champion, to kick off 2024 in Season 1, currently up on top, but by the slimmest of margins, 71 one-thousandths of a second only in front of our current and reigning champion, Camden Hibbett.
Got a new livery on this car, looking sharp in that 132. He's tucked in behind a few others here, including, I think that's Jordan Rick-Segrini just ahead of him. But looking down the field, there's some new names that are joining us, and one that had some success last weekend at Road America, the Toyota GR Cup Series. Henry Drury comes off his first podium in that series amidst a torrential downpour of rain. And if he can survive that, I think he'll be one to watch here tonight in Full Sense Sims.
Well, you know what they say, if you can get it done in the wet, you're probably a pretty darn talented driver, and that's a really competitive field, so I would say you're absolutely right. And the other thing is, how nice is it, as you said, to have Mr. Rick-Segrini back with us? He didn't race much with us last year, or last season. Did a lot in that first season, and it's really nice to have him back. Hopefully he'll be able to do it full time. And
it's going to help me that he's got yellow on the car this time, because this is what his GR Cup car looks like, so it'll be easier for me to spot him in the field. Cam Evan has joined us again, and with the talents that he possesses in iRacing, I'll be honest, it hasn't exactly been the easiest of times for Evan in this series because of how competitive the series is. We'll see if he can find some magic this season as he jumps to 10th on the board at a 144.8.
Well, he's one of those guys that, he showed up in the first race he showed up at. He was stunningly quick. And then the next race he came at just wasn't as effective. And he just sort of seems to, it depends sometimes on the track maybe. And, obviously these cars are a little bit of a different feel, aren't they? To other cars, even Miatas, that, big moment there. He just lose a motor?
He did. Well, That's a topic of discussion every time we come out here with this Full Sense Sim Spec Miata series, Greg. You have to respect the motor on the downshifts. This is classic old school H-pattern gear shifting, and these engines don't tolerate a lot of over revs. You have to make sure that the car is slowed down. You'd like to use some more engine braking if you could, but it just won't do it, so you have to wait until you can safely move to the higher gear before you shift down.
And we see what happens when that goes badly. But getting back to what I was saying, maybe for Cam, and maybe for some other people, that have come on board with this series, but really haven't raced this type of car. Just the way that these cars are set up to really mimic a Spec Miata more than an MX-5 Cup. For some people, that's just a tough adjustment, isn't it?
It can be. And have a look at this. We talked about those wide, flat curbs and how aggressive you're going to see drivers be over them. This is Morgan Burkhardt leading Camden Hibbett, and watch how much Morgan Burkhardt slams that curb, and that's 2 tires up on it, and then same thing down here at the bottom of the hill. You're going to get right up onto it here with those right side tires to rotate the car around. But those big berms, they don't have rumble strip to them, so they're pretty smooth. You just have to watch out for that on exit if you get flung wide.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, you can use it to great effect, but sometimes they will still bite you. I got a number of cars that have just pulled off in interesting areas here like that.
It's Cam Evan going for a ride. Now, late last season we had the debut of the new damage model on these cars, and it hasn't really been tweaked since. So the front end damage on these cars, you have to keep that in mind to keep the front clean. Now, shouldn't be too hard here because you're not going to see a lot of bump drafting, but you still have to be considerate of the front and rear panels on this car, because as we've seen, if you damage them, it will slow you down quite a bit.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that on this track. I mean, it's only 2.36 miles. It doesn't have really any long sections here. Are you going to benefit much from any kind of a draft here?
I don't think so. Maybe a little on the back straightaway, but it's so marginal in these cars to begin with. I don't think it'll be a big factor to talk about, but we will see drivers stay in line to just try to get what little effect they can as we have a look at Court Schmitz on board. Great look at his Full Sense Sim, and big triple screens, all the button boxes you could ever want. It's probably got more buttons than the real car does.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things, we talk about Full Sense Sims and Court, being the title sponsor of this series. Well, this is just one of the many versions of Sims he can build, from putting one inside of a racing car shell to really give you the feeling, to a basic starter sim, to now, multi-post shaker rig sims and the like. I mean, look at this. This is really, really remarkable. And this is the kind of stuff he does because he learned how to make and build sims in the military. You don't get much better sim training than that. And but now applies his real world driving experience to building them. And As a result, you get something like this. Pretty amazing.
Now, just notice right above his shifter, above the button box, there's a couple of blue lights that are blinking red. Well, that is a version of that iFlag system that was one of the hardware prizes that was given away at the tail end of last year. You'll see it sometimes flashing back and forth yellow, and that's signifying that there's trouble ahead. He's also got it tuned to be a shift light. He's also got it tuned to tell him if there's a car left or right. So it's a handy little tool that was part of the hardware prizes from last season, Greg, and that's, again, a part of the prizing for this season, which we'll give out at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. As always, there's going to be some great prizes for the top three in the points that haven't won this year already, or are part of the administration of the Full Send Sim series. And they really do like to take care of the people that come out and support this series and do a great job. And while we're on the topic, we need to say thank you as well to FARA. They came on about mid-season last season, and it's just great. They provide the most accessible road racing series for spectators and competitors. For spectators, no ticket cost and a minor parking fee. That's it, to be able to get in. So a family of four can come and attend for virtually minimal money, and great variety and diversity in the series as well. So check that out. And then, of course, the sponsors that have been with us since the very onset of this whole thing 2 years ago. 3P Logistics with Frank Rodriguez, just an absolutely great group. Tailored Trackside Support, Race Car Storage, Maintenance, Repair, Transportation, and Final Turn Motorsports, owned by Rob Greenwood. Full service prep shop, Trackside Support, Miata Tranny Builder. Again, from day one. And then about midway through the first year, Wine Country Motorsports joined us as well. And, they continue to be the racer's resource for helmets, suits, gloves, shoes, seats, harnesses, anything you want really for over 30 years. So that's a thank you to all of those great sponsors. And that takes us to the end of qualifying. And it looks like Nicholas Rice-Puto held on for that pole.
He did, and he will roll off on the front row. We will get a full pace lap to get all the tires and brakes warmed up here, and we'll have a look at the weather. It's been cloudy here just outside of Birmingham, Alabama, here in iRacing, but that track temp's still pretty warm, 116 degrees Fahrenheit. I do think that tire temperature will be something to manage today, Greg, just because of how much you're leaning on the tires on a track with so much fast cornering, especially at the end of the lap where you've got sort of a cheese grater in those final few corners where you're just leaning on those left sides through a long sweeping right-hander.
Yeah, and you think about it too, turns 2 and 3 leaning on those lefts, turns 7, 8, 9 on those lefts. So they do take a little more of a pasting. The one break they get is that turn 5, that fall away down into what they call Charlotte's Web. And that's the one spot where they can get a little breather here. And again, you turn in here and you lose that little bit of camber. It kind of falls away right at turn in. Then you get it again at the bottom. It's not massive compression, but it does come back to you. And I'll tell you, that's the turn that when you are watching bikes race here, it's just spectacular. And so if you get an opportunity to come here, whether it's cars or bikes event, do it. You want to check it out. Good look at Skip Brock. Great to have him and a little bit of visual here. And, of course, our multi-time champion, Morgan Burkhart, getting ready to set sail, starts third. Hibbett, actually outside of the front row. Deacon Greenfield with the VR goggles all set to go as well, qualified up in the 8th spot. There's Camden starting second, Morgan Burkhart third, Piatek in 4th, Rick Segrini in 5th, and Beans Forster, Josh Soto, Deacon, as we said, Skip Brock starts 9th, and Andrew Gilliland starts in the 10th spot.
Well, let's roll that through that starting grid. We'll have a full pace lap as we just get a look at some of the onboard cameras that we've got here tonight. And there's plenty of drivers giving us a view inside their rig. But as you pointed out, Nicholas Rice-Puto, Camden Hibbett on that front row. Then it's Morgan Burkhart and Olivier Piatek in row number 2. Jordan Rick Segrini and Beans Forster make up that 3rd row, Greg.
And then it's going to be Josh Soto in that 7th spot in his 77. Deacon Greenfield, the number 20, starts 8th. Skip Brock, the 32, starts 9th. The number 91 of Andrew Gilliland starts in the 10th spot.
Then it's Cam Evan rolling off 11th in the 155. John Reyes in the number 29 starts in 12th place, with Rosencroft in the number 80. Michael Loughran in the number 133 starting in 14th. Henry Drury, fresh off his first podium in Toyota GR Cup, starts 16th, and rounding out the 8th row, Greg, Dylan Lee in 16th place.
And starting 17th, the 86, the CJ Bunn, new to us, but was looking pretty solid in that practice session and qualifying. Starting 18th, the number 6 of Elliott Burton. 19th, the 89 of Jim Friedhofer. Starting 20th, the 901 of Joshua Clatterbuck. Starting 21st, the 042 of Seth Smolman. 22nd, our good friend from Fara, Jose de las Casas, and his number 17. 23rd will be the number 61 of Andrew Gaeta, and starting 24th, the 22 of Rich Green.
And we got Arif Aziz starting in 25th in the number 212, and Al Ducharme in 26th in the number 70, followed by Cord Schmidt in 27th place with the number 33 car. Sawyer Richards 28th in the 125. In the final row, Wayne Buttermore and Evan Hamitman rounding out our 30-car grid for Barber Motorsports Park. And while this is a season-long run, we go to some of the best racetracks in North America. And this is an interesting schedule here this season, Greg, because for the first time, we're going to break out onto the West Coast. We've got Summit Point Raceway next week, but Willow Springs and WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca are on the calendar weeks 3 and 4. We're going to mix things up with the track running this year.
Yeah, and I like that. And of course, there is some SCCA racing that'll be unfolding at those other venues, and we love that as well. To be able to let some of the drivers that might be running Spec Miatas at those venues get a little time here beforehand. And the last thing I wanted to mention, I think this was a statement for Nicholas Rice-Puto. He was frustrated, I think, last year. He always seemed to have the pace, but just couldn't stay up front for whatever reason. And to put it on pole here, I think he's just making it maybe even to himself to say, I'm ready, I'm getting after it. And here they come. Watch for the green. We're green, we're racing. Season 3 of 2024 is underway. And very even down into this first turn. And if Camden can stay there, he'll have a nice line. And no, nicely done there by Nicholas. Just flowed a lot of speed. Camden pretty much had to just tuck in and prepare to defend, because Morgan Burkhardt's not going to waste a whole lot of time.
Clean through the opening corners. I think the last time we were here, didn't we pile him up big time down there?
Massively, yeah.
And Camden Hibbett's going to pull to the right. He wants the lead away from Nicholas Rice-Puto. They're going to drive hard down into Charlotte's Web here, but Rice-Puto on defense hangs on.
Yeah, and Camden runs that a little bit wide, and Burkhardt sticking his nose underneath. Big lock up there. I think that was that Court losing a motor?
It could be. He stopped dead stick already, and he's out. Sawyer Richards is out. Motor is all down there, and look at Rice-Puto climbing the curb down here.
Yeah, and I mean, he's just, I think, going to have to be a little bit more aggressive than he was last year. He was nice and smooth, and in the first season, if you will, of 2024, when he won the championship, he did it with being really smooth, always earning lots of points. But this field has just gotten better and better, and Camden Hibbett, chief among them, has made some big steps. And I think now you just got to get really hard on the aggression model here. And up the hill we go. And as I said, when Hibbett ran wide on that entry into turn 5, trying to go around Rice-Puto, Burkhardt stuck his nose in and is through.
Trying to set up Morgan Burkhardt here for a pass on the front straightaway. A little later apex, got on throttle a bit sooner, but nose to tail now as the first lap is complete. It'll be roughly 12 laps around here at about minute 45. Whoa! That was Jim Friedhofer around in the background.
And somehow he split those two cars and didn't contact them and is able to keep it moving. How did he not get into those folks? Watch this. That guy's coming right between them.
That was Andrew Guada that got into him there, kind of hip checked him off the racetrack, and then was along for the ride in the grass. Is CJ Bunn and Jose de las Casas are side by side. Nice livery on Jose's car. This is new. And for second place, hold that thought, because here comes Camden Hibbett.
Right back down underneath Morgan, but Morgan with that outside line might be able to roll a little bit more speed here. And again, the draft's not a huge factor here, so he's probably not going to get freight train Hibbett, that is. But as you can see, Morgan with that little bit wider line, able to make that work. And this is such an intensely fun sequence of corners, isn't it? That 7, 8, 9, it is just fabulous to run through there.
Gil Lind and Skip Brock Jr. had a little side-by-side heading down the hill. Skip Brock giving us a look on board at the raw emotions of racing. You see the amount of focus he's got right now as he pulls ahead of Gil Lind in the 91. Just so fun. I love when drivers give us an insight into what they're thinking, what they're saying in the heat of battle here.
I do too. It's, just as you said, I love the look of concentration. Oh, the number 133 Alafrin having it off, and I think he's done.
He got tangled here. Oop.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, that's a big hit.
Yeah.
That took
Lots of damage there. I think it may have been.
Yeah, it was the 200.
Tried that outside move. I don't think Alafrin ever saw him there.
No. With that car for a ride. Just like that, it is over in race 1 for him with that car. A smoking heap in the pit lane. And Rice Budo and Burkhardt, your front two with Camden Hibbett right behind. Already 4 minutes elapsed.
Yeah, and Piatek has not lost touch too much. Then a little bit of a gap back to Beans. Not a huge one. As a matter of fact, Beans now closes right up. Oh, look at that move. As for just an instant, Piatek got a nose inside of Hibbett, but he couldn't do anything with it. Deacon Greenfield having a great race right there in 6th. There's a look at Beans and the wonderful footbox cam that he has.
Watch the braking here. He's going to go to the inside of Piatek. It gets busy down there in the pedal box, doesn't it? But he goes down a couple of gears, then right back on the power as Piatek's now, he almost dropped behind Deacon Greenfield, but
he did.
Greenfield recovered.
You see the big grin when he executed that pass? I mean, that just tells you the joy. You were talking about the focus, but there's also that joy, no question about that. Whoa, Rick Segrini and Deacon Greenfield are having one heck of a scrap here. So great to have Jordan back.
Yeah, things get tight through that S's complex. That chicane is on the limit. I don't care if you're in a downforce prototype or if you're in an MX-5. You are completely on the limit through there. And going side by side, generally not advisable. You can do it, but it's not easy.
This is that section I was talking about where you can make that big arc through what is turn 16, really late apex it and get a nice run. And speaking of runs, Morgan Hunton right now on Rice Budo trying to get in his mirrors, frustrate him a little bit. Nicholas having none of that. Down the hill they go. Boy, you can see, if you overshoot that, Kyle, just the slightest, and you drop those right side tires in the grass when you're off camber, it's really tough to hang on to that.
And there's so much cornering load going in at this racetrack. And these cars don't have aero, so all of your grip is from your tires. Burkhardt's going to open the door here to the inside. He's going to sit on this pass. But because all your load is through the tires, if you break that traction at any point, you don't have any downforce to save you. You're going for a loop.
Yeah, exactly. And I've always kind of wondered why there's no exit curve there in 1. But on the other hand, I've always been grateful there isn't, because man, it really makes these drivers at any level really have to thread the needle through there. And just look at this queue working through here. This is a really nice group. I mean, right now, top 7 covered by less than 2 seconds. And then Joshua Soto not too far out of it. And Cab Emmett has worked his way up into 9th after a problematic qualifying.
Yeah, you mentioned the curbing here. This is an older laser scan, I think from about 2005-ish. But the track really hasn't changed all that much. And while they have installed a few different curbs here and some rumble strips here and there, for the most part, it's relatively the same in character, at least. And the drivers will take full advantage of the track where they can. I love this last sequence. It's so much fun to just let the car kind of carry speed here, tuck it in late, and then fling it back to the left for this last turn. It's really hard when you first start learning it, but when you get it right, oh gosh, it's one of the most fun sequences in North American racing, I think.
It's got to be really satisfying, and as you said, fun to be able to absolutely thread that needle perfectly through that sequence of corners. And I love how through 12 and especially 13, they just eat that entire curb to just really carry and flow speed through there. And then up through this section here, this whole track is just loaded with great flicks, and that's what Burkhardt thinking about it again. But I love these chicanes, that 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. They aren't chicanes in the old school sense. They're really high-speed flicks, and that's really fun.
Yeah, the designer of this track is Alan Wilson, who has designed a whole bunch of racetracks that are located all over the United States, including some grassroots tracks like Carolina Motorsports Park, Gingerman Raceway, and Autobahn Country Club. And while this one I think is his crown jewel, there are some similarities in how the tracks flow, especially the ones I just mentioned between Autobahn and CMP. They have a very similar flow and a lot of high speed but tight radius corners where you're just on the limit. And I think a lot of that is true here. He just had better topology to play with at this place.
Absolutely. Just following the countryside here absolutely beautifully. He also designed what used to be Utah Motorsports Park. Now I think it's Utah Motorsports Campus, which is obviously, just pretty flat in the desert there. But even that one has, some interesting character to it. And but none quite like this. And again, I think you're right about that topography here.
Pretty beautiful area of the country. Henry Drury side by side with Elliott Burton. This is for 14th place, and Drury in that 30 car started 15th. His progress has been fairly slow. Now this will be an adjustment period, I think, for Henry. Is used to driving cars of this caliber, but again, these cars are running a setup that slows them down and makes them heavier than the NCM X5 is in iRacing by default. So there's an adjustment period for a while where you kind of have to learn the quirks of this car and the way it handles, but once he figures it out, he's got the raw talent to move forward. It'll be fun to watch his progress this season, see how much he can pick up.
He's got an opportunity here as the number 6 you were talking about, Burton, running a little bit wide. The problem is that he's going to still end up on the wrong side of the track, but man, he got, as I said, a great run. Now it's just a matter of can he roll enough speed to stay with him around the outside, and he checks up and is going to thought about the underneath. And the one thing is, when you come from a series or other types of cars where you don't have the weight that these guys are dealing with, you have to be a little bit more cognizant of tire management in these than you do others, I would think. And just because of the weight, that's that part of that adjustment you're talking about.
And also note the track temperature's gone up 10 degrees since the beginning.
Wow.
So
that's a huge job.
It's heating up, and that's going to make tire conservation all the harder here. Under 10 minutes to go, so we're halfway through race 1. Nicholas Rice-Puto's led every lap so far, but Burkhardt and Hibbett are sitting right on his doorstep, ready to ring the doorbell. And I imagine that they are going to be pretty patient here and wait for an opportunity to strike.
And you can see Morgan now really starting to get aggressive on his curb use and the like. And you had mentioned it had been cloudy. Well, now we got lots of blue sky out there, so that's obviously the reason that this track is heating up. But one thing that we're seeing here, as glorious as this track is, and Morgan, no, not quite. As glorious as this track is here, it is difficult to pass on if you're in a car. Bikes, it's a whole different thing. But we're seeing that, with the slow progress of Eben, for instance, and Drury and some of these guys, because you almost need to have the guy you're racing make a little mistake for you to be able to get that edge, whether it's just, not, judging the line incorrectly. But now Morgan's going to stuff it down the inside. But this is where you can run. Look at this. What a move. Suddenly, after nothing, we have them 3 abreast coming out of turn 5 and climbing the hill. And Rice-Puto still has that inside line, and now Morgan realizes it, floats over, and as he does that, here comes Hibbett. But Hibbett realized that Morgan was going to straight line to that curb wisely, just breathed it. But look who is the guy who's made some passes is Beans Forrester. He has moved up into 4th.
He has. His internet's been a little shaky tonight. That could pose some challenges for him later, especially when he gets in close quarters. But someone lit the fuse on this battle. We've only got 8 minutes left, and you mentioned how challenging it is to pass here. And that's going to be a highlight here. And think about how important, how close the championship has been the last couple of seasons. Every race counts as Rice-Puto's in the dirt. Every race counts. You can't afford to finish second to a guy like Rice-Puto. You've got to make a move.
You absolutely do. And you can see he had looked at his mirrors once he cleared them. And I'm talking about Burkhardt and Hibbett. Realized he had a little bit of a margin, and he decided, I want to try and break him here. I want to try and open a gap. Pushed so hard he just overshot that corner. Was lucky not to lose the lead, and still has a little bit of a margin, but it just gives you an idea of how hard they're driving. You can see just touching the edge of the grass with those tires.
And kicking up some grass blades. I mean, they're really on top of it right now, but just that one little push Look how much it's cost Burkhardt, 3/4 of a second. It'll take 2 or 3 laps to earn that back. All the while, Jordan Rick-Segrini is putting pressure on Olivier Piatek here for 5th place. Everyone's been fine to play the game so far, but at some point, it's time to move.
On board now with Jordan, and we know he's awfully fast. There's no question about that, and just haven't seen him for a little bit here. Doesn't seem like he's lost too much, Kyle. All over the back of one of the quick guys in this series, Olivier Piatek.
Just like riding a bike.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like he hasn't been doing some racing,
Just at Road America last weekend, competing in Toyota GR Cup alongside Henry Drury, conveniently enough. And whoop, Piatek pulls off to the side. And Ryan Stuhlholm, he's out, so I wonder if there was something he had to address. As we get a battle for the lead here, Morgan Burkhardt looks to driver's right on Rice Pudo, side by side down the back straightaway.
Tough place to try and make that work when you're going through these chicanes. You got to be far enough ahead. And Morgan, look at the grin. This is the moment that he relishes, I think. He loves being, a little touch.
That opens the door for Camden Hibbett.
Look at Hibbett.
Try the outside, take that opportunity. And he's through. Almost. It's not clear.
And Morgan ran off the track, but it didn't really cost him much in turn. Well, it did enough, I think. He and Hibbett are pretty much side by each here as they head down in. This is a tough one because if Morgan can keep that little bit of overlap and he runs wide, and Hibbett, that was, I think, a move by Camden of preservation, because I think he was worried that Morgan, when he ran off, it might snap and come right back across, and he opened up the wheel, gave him a little room, but look what that did and gave Beans a little opportunity. Let's watch it again here, Kyle.
Yeah, just a big lunge here into turns 14 and 15. Right there, gets in the back of Rice Pudo. He had that thing hung out pretty sideways, managed to save it, but Hibbett runs the long way around. All that, though, put Beans Forster in position, but Forster wasn't able to fully capitalize. Jordan Rick-Segrini now battling for 4th because of Piatek's retirement.
Yeah, he's got an opportunity here and now has to tuck back in. And he's brought Deacon Greenfield with him, who's having a really, really solid run. Deacon up into 6th here. Soto has fought his way up into 7th. Evan now 8th. Skip Brock 9th, and Andrew Gilliland up into the top 10. And look at this. Burkhardt's got the nose alongside. He's trying to give him the little bit of a nudge here. He's going to stick with him here, and nice job there by Rice Pudo. He could have easily just wiped him right off the track had he wanted to, and opted not to play that game. And now Morgan is through and into the lead, and Camden trying to counterpunch, and he got there. He's going to, oh my goodness, Rice Pudo is going to get freight trained here. Here comes Beans, Rick-Segrini, low, and he's sideways. What a save! That's another huge save, but he's going to be frustrated that he's just lost 5-6 spots.
Yeah, he is absolutely getting run over at this stage, and Morgan Burkhardt saw an opening, he took it, and Burkhardt just turned in real sharp, was able to kind of straight line the last corner in the S's and get through to the lead. And all this put Rice Pudo on the back foot. He's in the grass at the exit of turn 1, and there's still more that are ready to pounce.
Look at
Evan. Blood in the water.
Same story, I think, for Greenfield. When he saw Rice Pudo go off, he opened the wheel, just curious or concerned about him coming back across, and Evan wasted no time and dove inside. And look at Soto coming up to split the group here. Oh man, this has gotten fraught here as we have 3.5 minutes to go, Kyle.
Think of the points implications. At the end of the season, we could look back on this race and say if Rice Pudo covered off Morgan Burkhardt there, he could be champion. That's how much he's fallen, 5 positions in a lap. That will matter at the end of the season, and you can't do anything about it now. It's already happened, so that'll be something that I think 0-3 could learn from, is you never give Morgan Burkhardt an inch, he will take it.
Yeah, and I wonder, and I'm not saying this is the case, but I can see where Rice Pudo could maybe have a little feeling like he got mauled a little bit here in these last couple of laps. He got knocked sideways that one time over in 15-16, and then coming through here. Is that a touch?
Yeah, it was a touch.
He got touched by Jordan, I think.
I think it was Beans, actually.
Was it Beans?
Right here, the 23 on the inside, and then watch right here as they go to the apex. Boom, right there is the contact.
Yeah.
But straightened it out.
Brilliant, nice. Yeah, 2 brilliant saves by by Nicholas, but I have a feeling he could feel a little aggrieved here.
Yeah, I think so, but it's nobody's fault. It just all happened at once, right? So when he falls down the order, everyone's his enemy, whether they did anything to him or not. 2 minutes to go. It means 2 laps to go. Burkhardt leads, Hibbett's in tow, and Beans Forster's there to pick up the pieces.
And the interesting thing, remember, and I got excited about Josh Soto splitting everybody. He got the door shut on him, and Evan and Brock were the ones that benefited. Soto fell back to 9th. So, such are the slings and arrows here of this track. And, you make a move somewhere, and it could put you in the complete wrong spot for the next sequence of corners, and Soto paid that price.
Every move has to be so calculated because you don't have the draft to make it up. So you can lose ground so much more easily than you can make it. It's not like Daytona where you can make a mistake and then be back on the car, another 3 or 4 corners later. That's why Hibbett has to carefully think and plot out and plan this pass on Burkhardt. He's only going to get one real shot at it, I think.
And what we've seen, I think, in the last, this season in particular, obviously, that's part of the huge growth that Camden has made. You think about the second season, the first season when he and Burkhardt would get to racing, and inevitably it was Camden who would find himself wrong spot or whatever. And last season, Camden was the one who usually found the way through, and he has really upped his game in that regard. And we'll see whether it's going to pay off here as we're on board with Jordan here, sitting in 4th. Ian Bean's going to have a great battle here as those lead 2 now checked out a little bit here.
It's so tempting to see that gap open to the inside of Forster and want to jam it down the inside, but it's just like the last 2 corners at CTMP where it opened. To run the corner, you have to open up the turn, and it leaves you vulnerable. White flag, Greg, 1 more lap to go.
All right, here we go. Can Camden figure out a way through on the 3-time champ? And then, of course, a great battle with Beans and Jordan behind them. See there, Morgan opening the angle up a little bit, trying to get a run, but Camden, all the match for him right now. And here's that run up the hill. Ooh, Camden went, he was trying to sell him the dummy, and Morgan did not bite. But now Camden up on the outside. Is he going to be good enough to keep that car there around the outside? It's all about exit speed. Camden's got that little bit of overlap. He's going to fight for it tooth and nail. Oh, man, they are going to be side by side, Kyle, when they enter 7, 8, 9. This is going to get sketchy. Morgan squeezing him.
That is tough math. Contact.
And a touch.
And more contact.
And another touch.
Burkhardt saves it. Here comes Forster. I don't know if he's going to have enough of a run, but Hibbett is not done yet.
Man, that was, you knew Morgan was not going to make it easy. He gave him just enough room. They both hit that curb. And now, what can Camden do? Is he going to try? And the problem is that he had that potential opportunity.
Watch this.
Oh.
He's going to have a run here. Burkhardt's going to have to cover it.
Yeah, and Morgan put that car right where obviously Camden wanted to go. But here's what I'm saying. Swing way out wide, and if Beans doesn't jam it down underneath, and you see Morgan short break him there, that was, I think he realized, and Camden gets all squirrely, and Beans comes through. And I think Rick Sagrini is going to come through as well. Man, look at Rice Pudo. What a fight back for him as they come to the line. And it's Burkhardt over Forster, Rick Sagrini to the podium, Rice Pudo 4th, and Camden Hibbett back in 5th. I wonder if Camden got a cut tire.
That was wild. Man, we'll go back and watch those replays at the end of the race, end of race 2. That was fierce stuff there for the front runners.
Man.
A couple other cars still battling back here. Sawyer Richards and CJ Bunn. They've still got about a quarter lap to go, but I mean, the aggression there, Hibbett did everything he had to do on offense, and Morgan did everything he had to do on defense. But, man, Morgan's so hard to get up out of his groove. You see Richards go wide. Spolman's going to drive to the inside here.
Richards didn't lose the whole thing. Now he's going to try and cut back down underneath. That was a pretty good tag. You can see the wrinkle there. This is a fight right to the finish here.
I don't think it'll be enough, though.
Oh. But he gave it a go, didn't he?
Checkered flag, and Spolman and Richards 22nd and 23rd as we wrap up race number 1 here from Barber Motorsports Park. Wow, these guys are putting on a show early in the season.
It doesn't matter where you're racing. Like you said, that was for 22nd, and they were racing as hard as anybody. But Burkhardt using that really aggressive sort of door slam, clean, but door slam, going up in a 7, 8, 9, gets the win, and Camden Hibbett paying the price a little bit later in the lap. But Forster through into second. Rick Zagarini returns with the podium. Bryce Puto, after dropping back to 6th at one point, at least gets up into the top 5. Hibbett 5th. Greenfield, another nice drive by Deacon Skiprock. Soto fighting his way back up into 8th. Evan and Gilliland rounding out the top 10.
And quickly looking down the rest of the order here before we lose our results. Dylan Lee, Wozencroft, Burton, Drury, and Reyes your top 15 as the session ticks over to warm up for race number 2. We've got a moment. Let's go back and look at really this entire last lap, Greg, because there was a lot to learn, I think, from this battle with Hibbett and Burkhardt.
You see Hibbett right here, just fights hard, gets that little bit of overlap, and he had that wider arc. And you can see him just squeeze Morgan. And I've said this before, that just tightens Morgan's lineup. He can't roll quite as much speed. And look right there, Hibbett had the nose, and then Morgan just aggressively comes across, got sideways, and that was the first tap. You see Morgan right there. It's a little sideways they touch, and then a tink right there. It still does not lose the lead. That's the amazing part.
And then Hibbett had an opportunity several times here to cross over Burkhardt and set him up. And you'll see him do that right here in this next section. He's going to chase Burkhardt over to the left, get him all crossed up for these next couple of corners. And he did that, but Burkhardt saw it coming, kept the car tight to the inside. Watch this. He's offline here, but as he makes this right-hander, over slows, and Hibbett's got nowhere to go.
Yep, and that's one of the things Morgan is really adept at. Because watch what happens here. Hibbett's right there again. Here comes Rick Zagarini around the outside. Hibbett opens it up. And see the brake lights? On Morgan right there. He overslowed, drifted right in front of Hibbett. And then Hibbett gave him the little tap. And I think Hibbett had a right rear tire go away from maybe some of that other contact.
Yeah, right here.
Left front, maybe.
A little cheeky right there by Burkhardt chasing him over to the side. But
yeah, it was. And it just killed all of the momentum for Camden. If he didn't cut a tire, he just lost a huge amount of momentum, and there came the other slicing through. But one thing about Morgan is, when he's out front, he is smooth as can be. When he's in a battle, the gloves are off big time. And like I said, last season, Hibbett won a lot of those battles. And I think Morgan may be also saying at the start of this, but like Rice Puto with that pole, maybe Morgan was saying, all right, kid, you got me last time, but the veteran now is going to come back at you and play rough.
I made the point that when we saw Nicholas Rice Puto drop out of the lead, that was a big championship implication for later in the year. This is race 1 of many this season, but when we look at the tail end of the season in the championships and how close they get, that drop from 2nd to 5th is going to cost Camden Hibbett. So, Greg, there is also probably an argument to be made about sometimes settling for a second. It is not in your nature to do that, but sometimes it can be wise to just take a second if that's all you can get. And maybe it was hard to read there, but Morgan was making it so difficult. I think the risks to get to the lead probably outweighed the benefits of actually getting it away.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think, at that point, this early in the season for Camden, I think you're right. All right, he's going to play really rough, just slot in behind him, take those second place points. And I think at some point in the season, because we've seen Morgan rough guys up before a little bit like he did. And I think at some point you might start to see Camden go, all right, turnabout's fair play. And if you're going to play that way and I'm behind you, I'm gonna do the same to you and rough you up a little bit, and that's when it's going to get really fun.
Now, if you're Camden Hibbett, why not? I mean, it's sort of a known quantity. We've seen these drivers battle like this in seasons past. Why not start that now? I mean, we saw at race 1 that everything short of throwing massive blocks is on the table for Morgan Burkhardt. Is it wise of Camden to play at that level and really get elbows out, or should he be kind of on the back burner and kind of maybe even wait for Morgan to draw a penalty and really mix things up?
Well, and that's the thing, is that I think, to be honest with you, I think Camden has waited a while for Morgan to draw a penalty for those moves where he dives inside and catches your quarter panel and knocks you out. He's never got one. So at a certain point, if Morgan's not going to get a penalty for it, Camden's going to have to just say, well, then I can race like he is, and I would like to see maybe a little bit more of a little tougher stance on that in terms of the officiating, because I think we're seeing it a lot. And yes, you can make the argument, it's great racing, it's so fun, but a guy's worked hard for the whole race and then just gets tapped out of the way. That's, to me, a little tough.
Yeah, I think we're going to see this again in race 2, and things are going to amp up again. And throughout the season, we've seen things come to blows. But it's hard sometimes when you look at the way that Morgan races. I've seen Tom O'Gorman drive like this too. He won't do anything that is illegal or could draw a penalty most of the time, but he will absolutely take it to the limit of what is legal to do. And some drivers will inherently leave some margin. Morgan Burkhardt knows how to leave you a millimeter. And if you make that mistake, you'll draw the penalty. So, it's very smart driving by Morgan Burkhardt to put Camden in that position that says, hey, you can be here alongside me. I'm only going to leave you a millimeter. If you mess up, you're going to get the penalty. If I mess up, it's just on me. So it's smart driving. It's aggressive driving. But I think you're right, Greg. It can get out of hand. And I think we might see it here in race number 2.
I think so. And, the other aspect of that is I think it's one thing when you leave the guy that, the car within a millimeter from the edge of the curb to your car. But when you turn in and your turn in forces that guy to use half the curb, if he hits that curb at that point because you've squeezed him there and that throws him into you, I think that's on you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because, everybody knows the curbs are going to upset the car and they're going to do something to it. So that's just my take on it, and we'll see what happens. The one thing we did see is we get another great look at, this is just an amazing sim. But one thing that we did see is they have implemented that rule again. The series has called the turn one, lap one, turn one rule, that if you are involved in an incident in that of any kind in turn one of the first lap, which is a tricky one here, you will have to start from the pits until you do one of the schools. Look how clean that first corner was on this one.
Yeah, I was going to point that out. I mean, remember last season we had a real nasty wreck going down there. Now, I don't want to speak until we really get the second race underway, but they did a nice job there. This is a tricky turn one as well because how fast it is. You're not slowing down all that much. You're on the throttle. This is a fourth gear corner in an MX-5, which is similar in pace to Road America. It's a tighter radius, but there's a lot more camber than turn one at Road America, but similar cornering speeds. So something to consider as we get going here. The starting lineup is on the left-hand side of your screen for this one, Greg, and Morgan Burkhardt and Beans Forster are going to share the front row for this. Jordan Rick-Segrini, Nicholas Rice-Puto, and Camden Hibbett, your top 5. Now, Rice-Puto's another one that he got shuffled out very quickly. Elbows out, Greg. He's got to. He has not been afraid to in the past, but if he's running this well tonight, you have to capitalize on the nights that you've got this pace to be inside the top 5.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we're going to see him get a little bit more feisty here in the second race. And the litmus test on that turn one, lap one rule is going to be, it's always right, the first lap or the first turn of the first lap of race 2, because everybody just seems to let it go a little bit more in race 2 here. And the guys that I think are going to have to be really, really mindful of that are going to be the Rice-Puto and Camden Hibbett, because they are not going to want to get taken out in anything in turn 1 and 2 here. They're going to want to survive those corners so they can come back and get after it. Hopefully we can see Kurt Schmidt here. He's going to start way back in 26 after that early engine issue in that mega sim. And I have it on good authority that this isn't the sim he usually drives either, because they've been doing some major work on both his office and the big shop area, and he's actually racing out in his shop tonight. So he may not be quite as familiar with this sim and how it works, but it's going to give it a go.
I'd like to get to the point where I've got a backup sim as cool as this one.
Yeah,
this isn't even the primary sim. This is the backup.
No kidding.
But
yeah, pretty darn cool here. And I love the mirrors. He's got the mirrors. You can see the cars a little bit off there in that mirror on the left. This is a cool shot.
Yeah, you can also see the perspective there in that right monitor. It looks a little off, but that's because you're looking at it from a very acute angle compared to where Court is sitting. Should also note that Olivier Piatek is back on the racetrack. Don't know why he had pulled off before, but he is back on the racetrack and ready to go, Greg, as the field leaves turn 16, and another 20 minutes going up on the board here.
All right, here's where we find out We're green. Immediately a big move there by Spellman and a couple of cars in the background, 3 of them getting involved. Oh boy, that wasn't even before we got to turn 1. So, but there's a touch, and that's Piatek going around. Spellman spearing off again. And Olivier looks, oh my goodness, what a tough day for him. But up front, we've got 3 abreast. Everybody making it through, but it was close quarter stuff. And Rick Segrini, what a launch as he's got position, heading down into 5 on Beans. Camden Hibbett going right with him, and Rice Puto sitting there as well. And Rice Puto's going to get swarmed again. Look at this, starting here 4 wide at the bottom of 5.
I think they were for a moment. They did get it sorted. But Rick Segrini's now center 3 wide with Camden Hibbett on the left and Forster on the right, and this is such a tight squeeze heading down here. And look at even the Nicholas Rice-Puto car. He's 3 wide, and there's contact with Deacon Greenfield.
Oh, it's that little touch. Oh, and then he gets tagged again. Oh, my goodness, Rice-Puto is going to be absolutely beside himself. I think that may have been the 77 of Soto.
Oh, watch out. There's a little bit of pushing and shoving back here around Cam Eben.
Yeah.
Tough squeeze here. Lap 1, the gloves came off in this one.
And John Reyes there in that purple car tried to take advantage of opportunity. I think he may have picked up a couple of spots as a result, but the top 3 have broken away just a little bit here.
And the whole field actually has spread out a little because
Actually, Morgan has broken away big time. He's gone. Oh, the 61. Problem there for Andrew Gada.
Oh, tag, and this is later. This is another incident with Rice-Puto.
Wow.
Watch this again. They were door to door, and they come down here into the left-hander. Wada's kind of offline on the overtake, just kind of meet in the middle there.
Yeah. And then just along trying to get around him and couldn't. I think that was potentially Jose de las Casas was that 3rd car. But meanwhile, look at this margin now because of all that was going on behind as Hibbett has worked his way now into 2nd. Look at the gap Morgan has built up. And, you know, when this is a 2.5 seconds almost, and without that draft to really help Hibbett here, this is when Morgan has been known to be able to just break the field.
Yeah, he has lost a little since the beginning of this lap, but well, he gained it right back as I was speaking that into the braking zone for the corkscrew. So it's just going to be really tough to run Morgan back down here. When you open that gap up, it has just been so hard historically to keep him in sight. As Sawyer Richards has got the whole left front corner knocked in, and there's more trouble.
Oh, cars everywhere.
Is that Spolman involved?
Yeah.
See that Sawyer Richards car already torn up, and then look at that 22.
Oh. And Spolman got just a little tap from Drury. And that's what launched him sideways and started off that whole carambolage. Haven't been able to say that in a while. Meanwhile, Morgan up front.
Yeah, and it's by about a second, so the lap times this time through, 44.0 to a 43.7. So Hibbett was actually a fair bit quicker that lap. Gap stays around 1.1 seconds. It'll just be so tough. I mean, I think he might be able to do it, but he'll have to use most of the race to get back there if he's only getting them 2 or 3 tenths at a time.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think he's capable of it, as you said, for sure, but a little bit difficult here. And tell you, the guy that I really feel for here is obviously Rice-Puto getting punted twice in that moment. So that was a tough one.
Greenfield up into 5th place. He's had a pretty good night tonight. But let's go back to the very beginning, Greg, because we noticed that crash right on the start.
Yep.
Let's see if we can pick out what happens here if we look from high above. So they're not really grouped up or paired up very neatly back here. Oh, just a big move to the left there by that yellow car. Is that Wayne Buttermore? No, that was, who was that? I'm trying to, Evan Meatman, I think.
372, yeah.
So he just goes and then turns right into Buttermore there. And I think part of the reason why...
And Court's good until that moment.
Yeah, I think what happened there is the iRacing spotter won't start telling you who's left or who's right until you cross the start-finish line. But generally, it's just sort of assumed you've got a car to your left or right. But in that moment, because of how unbunched they were, maybe he thought he was still clear and moved to the left.
Yeah, absolutely. Hibbett got that down to 9/10. More action unfolding.
Gilliland and Soto.
Boy. Soto and Gill. And that's a shame because Gilliland was running 8th. He was on his way right there.
They just tripped over each other, I think.
Yeah. Ooh, Soto pretty good cloud into the barriers. Gilliland, I think, could maybe continue, but Soto, I think, might be done.
And you got it exactly right. Gilliland continues, Soto out. And a tough race too, hasn't it? There's always one. It's just like the NASCAR Daytona duels. There's always one that goes green from start to finish and one where you've got 10 cars upside down and cars barrel rolling. And this might be that one, as Wozencroft in the 80 has a lunge on Jean Reyes and the 6 of Elliott Burton, who's up to 10th.
Burton really opening the wheel up there. And look at Reyes trying to take advantage as Wozencroft just lost a little bit of momentum. And Reyes coming up using that inside line. He squared it up, but now Wozencroft, that little wider line, able to keep a little bit better momentum. And what's going to happen here? You know, there's going to be there it is.
Oh, man. I think what's contributing to this, I mean, obviously the drivers, but
exactly.
Well, I was going to point out that a lot of these corners are so fast, and when you're playing defense, it just leaves you in this extremely vulnerable position because you have to make the corner, and some of these drivers are defending and then forgetting to lift early, and just carrying too much speed and then tagging the guy that they were defending from.
Well, I think you're exactly right. Here might be the opportunity that Hibbett was looking for, as Morgan is going to get parked a little bit by these cars. Didn't cost him a whole lot here, and a nice job there. Moving over Buttermore, getting well out of the way. Or did he? Yep, stayed to the inside. And Hibbett's the one who's actually going to get held up.
Yeah, significantly too. That was about a half a second through turn 1 alone. That time Burkhardt was 0.2 quicker. So again, 1.3, 1.4 seconds. They haven't been able to eat into this in 4 laps. So that tells me that the trend might continue.
Yeah. Well, they had closed them down a little bit, and then that traffic actually worked against them a smidge.
Oh, look at this. Forster, late lunge alongside Hibbett here.
I have a feeling Beans thought that he feels he might have a little bit better pace than Camden right now. And he's watching Morgan disappear, and he wanted to try and do something here. But Camden obviously pretty wily and was able to get himself back in position. And this is that spot. You just cannot go too abreast through here. You think you can. You're going to try it. And every time we've seen somebody try it, there's been at minimum contact and at maximum cars spearing off the track because of contact.
Even the leaders that have some of the best awareness, they got tangled last time on the last lap battling. So it's a tough spot. You can go through there side by side, but you definitely can't go through there without leaving some space for the other car, which means conceding some speed, right? You can go 5 wide down there if you're doing 25 miles an hour, but when you're doing 90, no, you can't.
Yeah, exactly. And something I'm noticing here, and I don't know what kind of regulation or whatever it would be on it here. But I'm watching, and this is Morgan, just doing what he does. Oh, what a pretty move there. Wow, that was a sweet, sweet pass.
I think I know where you're getting at, Greg, so I want to pull up a replay. You tell me.
Yeah. Watch what he's doing here. Flowing a ton of speed in. And now watch on the exit. He just opens it up. He's coming over there, and that's a light section of track. He gets a little bit of lightness. He's got the car in a straight line, and he just lets it go way off of the track. But he's carrying more speed through there. In this last lap, doing that in 3 different spots, I noticed he picked up about 0.4 of a second.
Yeah, so the way that the rules here at iRacing work, that'll be a 1x. That won't be a slowdown penalty, though. And even right here, you see him cut straight across that curb. The curbing is fair game. The curbing counts. It's considered a verge. So the only way that you're going to get yourself an off track or a slowdown when you're on curbing in iRacing is if you put the center line over the grass and the curb edge, which is pretty far off track and far off the white lines. Now, you mentioned that they were going to be looking for that So that's something that they'll have to consider. Are they going to penalize for running wide at the exit of, what is that, turn 13 over there? And if they've said that, then absolutely they can, but it's not a penalty in iRacing. But that right there, well, you know, that technically is off course if they're going by their own white line rule.
Right, and you know, the other part of it here, and watch it, this time it wasn't, you know, the whole car wasn't off. And I think, you know, but as you pointed out, but he's done that a few times. And, you know, they did also say that on those big wide curbs, like the one up at 8 and down at 12, and I think 11 as well, that you've got to keep 2 tires on the track. And I've seen, you know, the problem is it's not just Morgan. There's a ton of guys that are doing that in spots. So, you know, how do you penalize the whole field? You know, well, that's a tough call.
I mean, that's where, you know, iRacing's enforcement comes in most of the time. Is it would penalize. That's why no one likes to drive Circuit of the Americas, because it won't let you go more than 2 tires beyond the white line, and that is a miserable way to drive COTA. So, you know, even when SRO goes there, they grant a pretty wide berth as far as limits are concerned to speed things up. But yeah, it's tough. And the curbs, again, they're so smooth that there's not a lot of deterrent, at least in, you know, by chassis or upsetting the car to get up on
exactly. And the reason for that, and you know, people might be going, well, then why don't they make the curbs more aggressive? Remember, this is primarily a motorcycle track, and you can't have super aggressive curbs on bikes, because that's how you get big crashes and hurt riders. And so, same thing with Laguna. That's one of the reasons that, you know, Laguna for years is, watch this nice little scrap here.
They've got
Lyndon Rice Pudo, and this is for 13th. That's just for Nicholas Rice Pudo and Andrew. That's just way out of position for their skill sets.
Yeah, you mentioned, whoop, there's someone through the dirt up ahead. Didn't see who it was, but you mentioned Laguna and their curbs. They do have ripple curbing, but it is very gentle.
Yes.
In opposition to places like Road America or Watkins Glen that have pretty gnarly rumble strips.
Right, and of course, you know, car racers have, you know, said for years, you know, we drop a tire there and it pulls all this dirt and debris up onto the track, and it makes it, well, yeah, but again, it's designed, you know, those curbs take bikes into consideration, and you just have to deal with that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny to me about the curbing thing is that to avoid anti-cuts, you put those massive sausage curbs in, as you see. I think that was Dylan Lee. Nope, that was Rich Green coming to something. You put those massive anti-cut curbs in, and then you start flipping cars over. It's like you have to literally flip cars over to get drivers to stop cutting the track. I mean, that is how much race car drivers want to find an advantage.
Yep. And, you know, that's that. And in a way, it goes, you know, to me, it goes back to Mario Andretti's famous line about, if you don't want me to drive on it, don't pave it.
He's got a point.
He does have a point. He does have a point, you know? I mean,
actually, you know what track did do? Took that pretty literally. Wow, that was a send from Cam Ebbett on Deacon Greenfield.
Sure was.
He's going to rim ride the exit of the corkscrew here, but Sonoma Raceway down in the hairpin put concrete walls on the inside so that they could stop drivers trying to cut that down there.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, you know, and I mean that hairpin down there, I mean, it's just wide open, and it's such a, you know, that's just a huge invitation. And whoa, big wiggle there from Cam. Did you see that? Really got crossed up.
He's pushing right now. Last time by, he was 0.3 quicker than Burkhardt again, and if he does that every lap for the next 4 laps, which is all we've got left, he will get to Morgan Burkhardt. That time, though, was only a 0.2 gain.
Yeah, and I think it was primarily because of that wiggle. And you know, when you're driving so on the limit, and then you just exceed it a little bit, and you get that little bit of a slide. It just is. In these cars, you know, we talk about momentum, and I mean, you and I were at Lime Rock for Grid Life last week, and a huge momentum track. This is too. You know, this is a big momentum track, and you get one of those little slides that robs that little bit of speed via friction, and it takes you a while to get back there. And just like that, but I mean, wow, he has now trimmed that. He's taking it down to a second, and then it goes up to 1.1. But he's definitely making some inroads, but we're coming up on only 5 to go here.
And running out of laps, running out of time, especially if Beans sort of concedes the effort to catch Morgan. and starts to battle Camden, it's game over. Then we'll have to look rearward to find Jordan Rick-Segrini. But Deacon Greenfield, John Reyes, this is for 7th. Greenfield on defense down here into the corkscrew.
Nice job of it as he went right where Reyes was thinking of going. But, you know, Reyes, this has been a really good race for him. I told, you know, earlier I saw him take advantage and pick up 2 spots in one move. He's fought his way up into 8th, and he was down in the top 15. So he has, we've seen this kind of speed from him on occasion. And, you know, at one of these races, he's going to put it together, and it's going to be an easy top 5 for him. And I can't wait to see it. He's really quick. But, boy, Deacon really moved. That car moving around big time. You can see how it affects your pattern, so to speak. Once he had that moment, he just couldn't get it back to the apex.
It was really fun watching that car kind of squat over on the left rear corner and kind of skedaddle across the track. It reminded me of watching, you know, old Trans Am cars or something with all that suspension travel and just watching them skate across the surface. But under 4 minutes to go, 3 laps left. I think the idea of catching Burkhardt is dwindling, and that means Forster's aggression will likely pick up here as he sees an opportunity to maybe grab some more points.
Yeah, boy, what does Camden do here after that horrible last lap when he dropped from potential fighting for the win to 5th? He's going to have Beans, and you know Beans is not shy on aggression either here, and Camden is going to be like, okay, do I take 3rd place points? And you know, I don't think Camden's ever going to let somebody just through. So this should be a great scrap. And you know, Jordan Rick-Segrini not far off them. He's only 4/10 behind these guys. There he is. And so, you know, he's there to pick up any scraps. And the minute that they start fighting as well.
Trouble for Jean Reyes. Comes to a stop, which leads
announcer's curse. Unbelievable.
Could be motor.
Okay, let's go with that.
Well, let's just have a look. Oh!
Oh!
Wow, that came from.
Oh.
And you see it damage the left rear Reyes. It took him. What happened? Did these two have something happen before that we missed? They must have.
I think so.
Oh, I think Rich Green, he just, almost like his brake pedal didn't work. Like he just
I think so too.
Straight into. He tried to slow down. He was off the throttle, which if he was trying to intentionally run into him, he would just stay flat foot. But
sure,
that was odd.
Whew. That was a huge hit. Meanwhile, back up front here, still about a second, and then 1.2. Morgan is wickedly fast through turn 1 and 2, isn't he?
And he's been managing. You know, we've talked about Camden gaining a 10th here, a 10th there. Morgan Burkhardt's best lap is 7/10 faster than Hibbett or Forster. That is impressive.
It is. It really is. And watch here, and Jordan Rick-Segrini dropped 6/10 back. He's now trimmed that back down to 4. I don't know what happened on that lap, but it just was not on pace. And his last one now has brought him right back into it again. So
CJ Bunn and Andrew Gillen, this is for 11th. And Andrew Gillen trying to recover. Remember, he got tangled up with Josh Soto at turn 15 and grabs that spot away pretty easily. Bunn's going to try to cross him over, but you're accelerating kind of through that second half of the corner. It's pretty tricky to do that over-under.
yeah, and the thing is that, you know, when somebody makes that pass on you and then they see you flick out for that over-under, if they really have that car under control, which clearly Andrew did, you just tighten up the exit, and that's right where that under part wants to happen, and now you've got to get out of the gas suddenly, and you just know their momentum completely. And that was a really sweet pass. And for CJ, I'm really happy to see this, because in the first race he qualified pretty well and then finished back outside of the top 20. And this race he has fought his way right back up into it here. And he and Andrew, they're only a couple of seconds off of a potential top 10. I don't think they're going to get there. But these two, it's just nice to see CJ having a really solid run.
Jim Friedhofer,
same for Henry Drury too,
is slow, and he's going to get split 3 wide. And CJ Bunn off in the grass.
Man, I got to just shut up.
Yeah, well,
this is bad.
Unfortunately, they do pay you to talk, so that.
Well, good point. Good point. Yeah.
Oh man,
I'm just going to have to go in. Yeah, you're that guy.
You ever seen? There's a great compilation out there of the supercars announcers where people just cut out all the ah, whoa, and they just cut it into one long
Oh, is
video.
that right? No.
Yeah, just
Well, they get a lot of it in that series, that's for sure.
That's so. And we're on the last lap. Hibbett and Forster are fighting hard for second, and that's a cut, I think, for Hibbett. If it wasn't, it was close.
Well, and it was even more aggressive for Morgan in front of him.
Well, he got away with it. Man, that track limit there is, I mean, he flew in there.
Yeah.
Hot. Watch this again.
Watch this. Yeah, look at Morgan, though. Oh, well, for Hibbett, for sure.
Yeah, he had 2 tires on the curb, though, so maybe that.
Maybe.
I thought the center line
that's
crossing
what it
would give him a penalty, but it didn't. But
It got him down to 9/10, but again, last lap, there's no way you're going to run him down. And now Hibbett using the Morgan Burkhardt line of flow and speed.
Cannot give Morgan Burkhardt an inch because he will take a mile.
Yeah, and he just doesn't make mistakes when he's, free range out front. He's just, well, as I say that, but he knows that's quick. And here he comes, picking up another one to start the season, doubling up. Camden Hibbett rebounding from a 5th at race 1 to a good 2nd. Beans another podium. Jordan just outside the podium, so a 3rd and a 4th here. Skip Brock, a great drive up into 5th. I love that. A lot of people battling here in other spots here. Cam Eben.
P6.
Fought hard for this, yeah. Elliott Burton, really nice run for him up into 8th, along with Wozencroft at 9th.
Yeah, and Andy Gillen will grab a 10th out of all this, so. And Henry Drury on debut, 2nd race of the night, P12, and that's a marked improvement from race 1, so I think he learned some things tonight.
And Nicholas Rice-Puto, after the problematic, the 4th, or was it the 5th in the first race, 13th here. That is brutal.
That was a tough night for him.
Yeah.
Either way, let's have a look at the race results. Race 2 of the night, and Morgan Burkhardt will sweep the opening round as he's done the last couple of seasons. Camden Hibbett, Beans Forster, your podium, and Jordan Rick-Segrini, a 3rd and a 4th tonight. Very strong return for the driver of the 108.
It sure is. It's nice to have back in the championship. Hope we can do the whole thing here. Skip Brock really fought hard and finds himself up into 5th. Great to have him up there. Cam Eben, a fighting race. Greenfield. Elliott Burton, really impressive drive for the number 6. Wozencroft as well, and Gilliland. He was in the fight all night long.
And looking down at the rest of the order here, in 11th place, Jim Friedhofer in the 89. Henry Drury, I mentioned, coming off of his first podium in Toyota GR Cup last weekend at Road America. Heads to Barber and iRacing, picks up a 12th. Nicholas Rice-Puto, a night to forget for him. Greg, 13th, but I think he learned that he's got to get those elbows out, but not too far out where he gets tangled up.
Yeah, I mean, he just was mauled a little bit again, got clobbered by a few guys here tonight. And I think he's going to be pretty upset about it, and I don't blame him. CJ Bunn, welcome to the championship, man, and you did a nice job fighting your way up again after that first race. And Arif Aziz in 17th. Spolman, who had a couple of big moments out there and survived for a top 20. And Josh Soto, talk about that guy being a little bit out of position there. And I see Court after that first race and then hit early again, fighting back and getting 21st.
Yeah, and looking down the rest of the order of drivers that didn't have a good night at all. Olivier Piatek crashed out of the 2nd race, but had to bail out of the first one. So that'll be a night to forget for him as well, and for Rich Green in the number 22. But drivers to chat with, let's start with Beans Forster, who comes home 3rd tonight in the Full Send Sim Spec Miata Series, round number 1 of the season. And man, this was a hard-fought event for you this evening. Started in 2nd after finishing up in the mix there, and you come home 3rd in race number 2. Beans, take us through your evening. It was a wild one out there. In race 1 in particular. Race 2, it was a battle mostly with Camden for that one.
Yeah, race 1 was definitely more of a dogfight, whereas race 2, we got separated a lot quicker. And so it was a lot more about managing tires. And I manage tires a little bit better when I'm in kind of more of a dense pack. And so as we were kind of spreading out, where Morgan got away from us at the beginning, I was just kind of murdering the fronts a little bit. But that was great. It's a super fun racing all around. These guys are great to come out here every week and hang out and race and just have a good time.
Did you ever think, in that second race, it looked like you never really were in a position to really attack on Camden? Was that because your fronts had gone off?
Yeah, I never really kind of set myself up. Camden was just getting better runs out of the corner. I was trying to figure out how I can get up there a little bit. And I gained a little bit of time up to him, but that was more of when he was kind of going wide on exit, scraping the dirt a little bit. So I was trying to just kind of hang on in there. I was happy with a P3, scoring P2 in the first race, and I had a comfortable gap between Jordan behind me. So I was comfortable where I was at. I was still trying for it, but it just kind of wasn't really gonna. I didn't think I was gonna go too far with it.
Sure. Well, hey, as you said, second and a third, that's really good points to start off season 3 here. Well done, bud.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Beans. Appreciate it. And moving on now to Jordan Rick Segrini. Good to have him back here after racing in Toyota GR Cup. Jordan, great to have you back in the championship here in the Full Send Sim Spec Miata series. Tonight, a podium and a 4th, getting right back up on the horse just like you're riding the bike. Congratulations. Take us through that first race because it was pretty spicy there in those last few laps.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it. Definitely was fun mixing it up. I don't have too much experience here, and Nicholas Rice-Pugh actually texted me yesterday asking if I was going to run the race, and he said it was at Barber. I was like, well, could use that practice for when I go here in real life. So didn't have the most practice, but had a fun time and learned a whole lot for what I'm going to take over to there in real life.
Well, and getting that on that podium as well, and obviously there were eventualities that unfolded there. But 3rd and 4th, that's good points. Are you going to be able to maybe run this full season? Is that the plan?
I'm going to try my best to. I missed you guys last season, getting to talk with you guys, so going to try it with the GR Cup season. I've been having to leave for test days on Tuesday night, so on some of the weeks it creates kind of a point where I'm not here, but I'm going to try and do my best to run as much as possible this year.
Well, I love to hear that, and obviously you got your priorities right, doing that GR 86 Cup, but we missed you too. Great to have you back and hope to see you as often as possible, bud.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. Thanks again, Kyle.
Yep, no problem, Jordan. Thanks for talking. All right, let's move on now to Camden Hibbett, who comes up runner-up tonight in race number 2 in Camden Race 1. Things kind of fell apart at the end for you, but race 2, they just never really materialized. I know this was a tough evening, and it got pretty aggressive at the tail end of the first race. Take me through that fight, and then trying to run down Morgan after the foray on the first lap with everyone kind of scattering.
Yeah, I think I would have been there in the second race. We had some lap traffic knock it out of the way and cost me about 8/10, so I would have been there in the second race, and that's just unfortunate. That's racing sometimes. Congrats to Morgan. He's stupid fast. That hasn't left from last season, obviously. But it was good racing. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the racing between the two of us develops, I think, because obviously it was very, very aggressive in race 1. And at some point, I think I'm gonna have to step it up. I mean, it's aggressive, and we're really good friends off the track as well. And I obviously don't want to lose that, but we're going for a race. We're going for race wins and championships, and the racing is getting more and more aggressive each week. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have to figure something out. I think you're gonna see some more aggression over the next couple races.
And that's totally understandable. We were talking about this during the race, and I've got to ask you this question. Are you surprised? There was some of this previously in other seasons too. Are you surprised that there hasn't been a few penalties to try and calm this down? Because if they're not going to do that, like you said, you're going to have to address it somehow.
Yeah, and I think me and Morgan are on the same page. We're going to race hard, and we're going to be teammates and work together. But when it comes down to race time, we're going to go hard, and I think the stewards understand that. And I think in previous seasons, I think they've just been letting us race and letting us manage it ourselves. We'll see if that continues over the rest of the season. I don't know the answer to that question. So
yeah.
We'll just kind of have to wait and see. But in the meantime, I think the aggression is either going to have to ramp up, or I'm just going to have to get more creative, get out ahead in front of them early on and defend from the lead, or try something, because obviously what I did tonight did not work. So we'll have to try something new next week.
In that last corner touch and everything, did something happen to the car, or was that just a big momentum loss?
I think it was a little bit of netcode. These
Okay.
cars are weird sometimes with the damage model. Morgan tapped the brakes just to make the corner, and it grabbed the nose and just threw the car around. So that's just an iRacing bug, unfortunately. That ended up costing me. I think I finished 5th in race 1.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Like we talked about it, it's race 1 of a 20 race season. We got a long way to go. Points are not going to matter for a long time. So we're just going to move on and head to Summit and go chase a couple wins next weekend.
Sounds like a good idea, and I'm looking forward to you pulling the Morgan over slow when you get out front to be able to drive away just a little bit. Again, great fight back to second. As you said, points aren't crucial right now, but they help. And as always, man, great drive. Well done.
Thank you. I appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, Camden. And tonight, sweeping both races was Morgan Burkhardt. In race 1, it was a little closer than race 2. Didn't really let anyone get to you in race 2, Morgan, but elbows are out early in the season. It was a fun battle between you and Camden Hibbett in race number 1. Take us through that battle before, obviously, race 2. You got a nice jump and never had to look back.
Race 2, it was, I think, as far as the driving goes, was one of the highest stress races that we've had in this series so far, which was absolutely amazing. I think on my end of things, it was a little bit further over the line than I really want to be, and I do apologize to Camden for that. There was a lot of contact that probably would have been avoidable, but I hope it came across as a good show. I knew all race long that Nick was really running off the tire. He was really pushing pretty hard in the first half of the race. So I started pressuring him the second half, really just sitting back and saving tire. And I realized that I could probably get him under braking, and I was getting really good exits off the corner. I was getting the wheel unwound faster than he was and on full power. So I ended up getting a really good run out of the corkscrew and found a hole coming through the chicane and just kind of ripped it and saw what happened, and then eventually got in side by side, and I haven't had enough overlap going into the chicane up there that it really couldn't have been hung around the outside, and got up in front, and I saw Camden was coming. I knew that he had been saving tire as well. We'd been talking to each other all race, and I figured that he was going to be really trying to get by on the last lap, and I did not expect him to hang around the outside of the hairpin in turn 5, and we did a really good job to stick it out there. And just going into the corkscrew, I knew neither one of us was going to lift. I've never tried to go side by side through there before, and it went just about as well as I thought it would. There's some side by side rubbing, and it's so hard to go side by side through there with keeping both cars, all 4 tires on the racetrack. And I shaded over a little bit too much coming down to the bottom of it, and we had a little bit more contact. And then the final section, I knew he was going to be trying to go up the inside there, so I hung way right coming out of the hill right here, the crest of the hill, and just held it all the way down to the inside through both of those corners. And I knew that he was going to try and poke around the outside of the penultimate corner, so I just opened up the wheel before he really got there and tried to meet him right. See on my camera here. Oh, this is a nice thing about a camera. I can talk with my hands. Coming through the penultimate corner, I knew that he was going to try and roll around the outside, so I just tried to shade over just before he got there to kind of block off his runs and really force his hand so he couldn't really do anything, and tried to woe it down so that I could make the final corner and ended up doing it. So.
And just in that second race, obviously, Camden said he got a little held up in traffic, and when you get a break like that, particularly on a track like this, you just tend to set sail and see if you can break people, and you got a nice enough lead you could do. But one thing I want to ask you, there were a couple of spots that I noticed that it looked like you were kind of what you do at the exit of West Bend at Lime Rock, when you just stay off in the grass there and widen your arc up as you come down the hill. You were exiting and you had all 4 wheels off in the grass, but it was in a spot where you were going straight, and you were able to, it looked like you just flowed some speed. You made up like about 4/10 in that lap. Was that by plan, or was that just you realized, well, I got in a little hot here?
Well, the first time it was an accident. I realized that chicane, you can roll a ton of speed. And again, I rolled way too much speed one lap and popped all 4 wheels over the curb, and the car is so light there, and we don't have enough power to get wheel spin, so it doesn't drag the car down. You don't get any friction resistance from the hot asphalt, and you actually pick up a little bit of speed. And because at that point in the race I had gotten over there because I'd killed the front left tire, turning in for the right hander at the bottom of the hill is suddenly really easy because the left side has no grip. So you can end up actually carrying a little bit extra speed because of the lack of friction. The car's not really hunkered into the ground. It doesn't get loose because we don't have enough power to get wheel spin. And then when you turn in at the bottom of the hill, it just kind of turns in and you can just roll right into the corner, and you gain about 4/10 of a second. I found that out completely by accident in race 2, and then I accidentally did it a couple more times. I realized that maybe I shouldn't just abuse this every lap. It's kind of it's track limits. It's not mentioned in the driver's briefing, but it's not really ethical to do that. So every time I did it was completely by accident. But it is one of those things you accidentally find out, and it's different.
Yeah, it was certainly effective, and obviously, and I love the fact, because this happens in motorsports, you find something like that completely without trying to, and you just stumble on something. And again, just a classic Morgan Burkhardt drive in race 2, man, and a sweep of the weekend. You're off to a good start for that 4th one, but
yeah, no, I don't think this one could have gone much better. So we'll hope the rest of the season follows suit.
Thanks, Morgan. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Greg, wrapping things up here from Barber. Man, race 1 in particular was a barn burner. And we've got some fun races coming up next week. Summit Point Raceway. That'll be a fun one. Willow Springs, Laguna Seca, and Sebring follow it up, Greg. So final thoughts here at Barber.
Yeah, some absolutely great venues. Just mixing it up a little bit here, and then we get back to some of the ones that we've been spending time at. Do want to remind everybody, the Full Send Sims Racecraft Academy is back in action, and if you don't have a lot of experience at Summit Point, this coming Thursday at 7 p.m. is a Racecraft Academy at Summit Point. All you have to do is go to Full Send Sims website, sign up. It's been great. Barber is such a pretty place. Tough to race on here, but it's always fun to come. It's a beautiful venue, and but I'm looking forward certainly the rest of the season and a couple of venues we haven't been to before in this championship. That always makes it exciting, and we are off to a raucous start, so it should be interesting to see how it plays out. Big thanks as always to Full Send Sims and to our newest sponsor, Farah, and we also have to say a big thank you, of course, to our full for the entirety of this championship. Again, just some great partners in 3P Logistics. They do such a great job. Final Turn Motorsports as well, and Wine Country Motorsports. Thanks so much for joining us. And again, for Kyle and for Finian, again, brilliant job with the cameras. I'm Greg Creamer. We will see you next time out, next Tuesday night, and it should be awesome when we get to Summit Point. We'll see you then.